Jeffrey here. When it comes to relationships, a lot of coaches and a lot of videos love to talk about this concept of setting boundaries and basically try to put your foot down to define what's acceptable behavior and what's not acceptable behavior. Well, in this video, I'm going to go against what all of these coaches are saying and all of these videos are saying again and tell you how most people's idea of how to set boundaries are actually quite toxic for a long-term relationship. And I'm going to show you what you need to do instead if you want to create a thriving relationship for the long term. And what I'm about to say here is going to offend a lot of you. But I really want you to stick around until the very end of this video because understanding this topic is crucial. And in my experience, setting boundaries is one of the most misunderstood topics. And when done wrong, it can be one of the most subconsciously toxic things that you do in your relationship. And for those of you who are new to this channel, my name is Jeffrey and I help men in long-term relationships and in marriages with the right skills and with the right mindsets to be able to design and lead a thriving relationship. So if you want more content on this topic, subscribe to this channel and click the bell button as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. Now, before I begin this video, I want to let you know that the registration for the masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up is still open. So if you want in on that masterclass, be sure to stick around till the very end of this video for the announcement on how you can get in on that. So let's begin this discussion by talking about how most people define what setting a boundary means and how you are thinking about setting your boundaries. But basically, boundaries, if you really understand the traditional definition of it, is really about setting an expectation of what's appropriate behavior and what is not appropriate behavior. This is often about your ability to say no to something. No, that is not acceptable. No, I don't want you to do that. No, that's a line you cannot cross. And if you really ask about what is the reason most people set boundaries, is because they want to establish their power. They want to prevent themselves from being taken advantage of. And basically, you're trying to coach your partner here by setting boundaries. Now, the problem here really lies with the way we see what a boundary is and also how we set these boundaries. Because if we're really honest with ourselves, the way we often set boundaries is by defining what not to do, what is the lowest standard of what is acceptable in a relationship. And to make it worse, most of us set boundaries only when we think our partner has crossed it. And often we set these boundaries by being stern with our partner to say, no, that is not acceptable. Now, if this is the way you're setting boundaries, this can be very, very toxic for 4 good reasons. 1, when you set boundaries this way, it creates a culture of confusion. To be honest, defining what not to do is a terrible way to coach. As a coach myself, I try to not coach people by defining what not to do. You know, when I was young, for example, my parents always told me, Jeff, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. I've worked for companies and bosses who outline like 1,000 ways of what I can do, but they never really define what I can do. And that becomes very confusing for me because this will make your partner feel like everything they do is wrong. And if you really think about it, the best way to coach someone is not to define what not to do. So if let's say you're trying to coach someone on how to ride a bicycle, you can outline 10,000 ways of how to not ride a bicycle, but it'll be easier to just say, here's how to ride a bicycle. Because honestly, the ways of how you cannot do something is infinite. You can never stop. And so it just ends up confusing and demotivating your partner here. So coaching someone by defining what not to do, by defining the lowest standard, the boundary, is often not useful at all. It actually makes your partner and you more frustrated and more confused. And 2, when you set your boundaries by your lowest standard and you give your boundary in this very stern way, it creates a lot of defensiveness and a lot of self-preservation on both sides. So it will make you defensive, first and foremost, because when we have defined our boundaries, usually we define our boundaries as something that is black or white. For example, we say, lying is not okay. Affairs are never ever okay. Yelling in the relationship is never ever okay. Stonewalling is never ever okay. We have this black and white rule to say that is a line you cannot cross. And so whenever your partner yells at you, lies at you, has an affair, and crosses our boundaries, we're often too upset to even explore, are there other intentions or other reasons why my partner has crossed those boundaries? We instantly assume bad intentions. We instantly assume that that behavior is toxic. And so if you're honest with yourself, when you set your boundaries, you set your boundaries in often a very angry, in a very hostile, or at least in a very, very stern way. You're already in a state of self-preservation. And when you're already in a state of self-preservation, it's naturally going to make your partner defensive and self-preserve as well. And when both of you are defensive and self-preserving like this, it leads us to the third thing, which is it prevents deep understanding and deep compassion. And again, this happens from both sides as well. So for my side, if I'm already upset, if I'm already angry that my partner has crossed my boundaries, there is not a chance that I'm going to be calm enough to even ask questions, to ask the question, why did you cross this boundary? How come you lied to me? There's no way you can be calm enough to ask that question and to investigate, are there other reasons why my partner is doing XYZ? And so that robs me of understanding, are there actually any other reasons my partner is crossing the boundary besides the ones I'm thinking about? And it also prevents compassion and understanding from your partner's side as well. Because as long as she sees that you're already upset, you're already angry and frustrated by her crossing your boundary, she's not going to ask you questions. Instead, she's going to spend her time justifying and explaining herself in order to self-preserve. And this lack of understanding from both sides will actually make it very, very confusing for your partner on what is exactly your boundary. Sure, the boundary may seem very black and white to you, but to your partner, they might be considering other reasons that they crossed your boundary. And so they're not really understanding like what is actually your boundary because they never have the chance to actually ask the question, what is your boundary? And they never get the chance to ask the question because the conversation has completely shut down at this point. And the last part is that it will destroy safety from both sides. So for you, you're going to be stuck in this cycle where you're going to have your own assumptions of why, the intentions of why your partner crossed your boundaries. You're going to think about all these reasons about why crossing your boundaries is terrible and bad. And because you never have this communication, this conversation, you can never identify or understand that perhaps your thinking was wrong. You're always going to be stuck in this loop of your own confirmation bias and stuck in the loop of your own frustration, confusion, and so on. And thinking to your partner, how could you do this to me? And your partner is going to be stuck in this cycle of confusion and confirmation bias as well to say, okay, I think I understand what his boundary is. I think I understand what he's looking for, but I'm not so sure. And she can't really talk to you about it because the conversation is shut down. So just to give you a very, very simple example of this, I used to have this boundary in my relationship where I actually hated it when my partner was lying to me. Dishonesty was a boundary that I didn't want my partner to cross. And so when I found out my partner lied to me about something, I instantly got upset. There was no way I couldn't get upset. I instantly got upset. I instantly assumed that she had bad intentions for why she was lying. I told myself that she was a bad communicator. She didn't know how to communicate. That she was trying to be abusive and not just a not good partner in general. Oh, you're lying. That's not honorable at all. And because I set that boundary and I shut down that conversation, I shut down that safety and I made my partner defensive, my partner often just justified herself, explained herself, but we never really had the conversation for me to understand, is there a better reason that I'm not thinking of that she's lying? And she's not really understanding what my boundary is as well. Is it really lying or is it something more that I'm not thinking about? Because in her opinion, her lying, there is a good reason for that, but I'm not willing to understand it. And so what happens is she starts to keep more and more stuff to herself because she doesn't understand what my boundary actually is. And she's afraid of the wrath that I would give her if she crossed the boundary. So just to be safe, she started to close off more and more and more and more. And that created this chasm between the two of us that makes it very difficult to have a good relationship. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand me here. So I can already feel the hate and confusion coming from all of you saying like, Jeff, are you saying I can't set boundaries or I shouldn't say no in relationships? That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying, however, is that fear-based boundaries, having black and white boundaries and saying no and creating boundaries prematurely without having a discussion about it first is going to backfire hard on you. It's going to bite you in the butt. It's not useful, it's not productive, it's also not effective. It will just keep you and your partner stuck in this cycle of miscommunication, frustration, and confusion as well. Am I also saying that I should let my partner walk all over me, have no boundaries, and let them take advantage of me? That's also not what I'm saying. The truth again is that fear-based boundaries does not help protect you. And it doesn't help protect you from letting your partner walk all over you. It is the same way in business. If you are in business with someone, if you hire a business partner or an employee, and you find yourself having to really set the boundaries through a contract, it usually means that you probably shouldn't be in business with that person anyway. To be honest, business contracts never really protect you from anything. I want you to know that there is a better way to protect yourself, to actually regain power and your strength in a relationship than setting boundaries. You want to create a relationship, whether that's in business or in romantic relationships, where you don't actually need the contract. You don't actually need the boundary because you're thriving way past the boundary. Because if you have to enforce your boundary all the time, then maybe you shouldn't be with that person. Your boundary is not going to protect you. And am I simply saying to accept bad behavior? Now, that's not what I'm saying again. What I'm saying is that fear-based boundaries will actually make it harder for your boundaries to be honored. Because again, fear-based boundaries will let you become more frustrated, will let you become more confused. And just to be honest with yourself too, think about the last time you set a boundary with your partner. Was that boundary honored or honored for long? Or did your partner actually just get defensive and justify himself and just got angry and you guys end up fighting over the boundary? So here's the truth you need to know about boundaries. Boundaries do not save relationships. In my program, we have over 50 hours of material talking about how you can become a better leader in your relationship. And not one time do we even mention the word boundaries. In fact, we actively encourage people to go against setting boundaries. And my program is filled with people who have saved their relationship and led their relationship to a place where they can thrive. And not once do we even mention boundaries. It's actually not needed. Boundaries, just like if you have to enforce a contract with your employees, it dooms your relationship, any relationship, to its lowest standard. It will allow your relationship to survive because you're defining it by the lowest standard, but it can never thrive with that. And again, I want your relationship to thrive to the point where you don't need boundaries. You're so way ahead that you don't even need boundaries. So what is the right ways to coach your partner? What is the right ways to actually protect yourself in your relationship and actually gain more power in the relationship? I want you to define and try to reach the highest and most positive standards of what I call the bright spots. But the reason why people struggle to do this is because most people have a very faulty way of approaching how to actually have a conversation, resolve conflicts, and coach each other to the point where they can thrive. So the most crucial mindset that you need to have if you want to coach your relationship to the point where it can thrive like this is to adopt a new mindset, a new way of thinking. And this new way of thinking is what I call the hypothesis, antithesis, and synthesis-based thinking. So if you look at this, most people, they can only think via their hypothesis. So most people, for example, they set a boundary and they say, I'm convinced my boundary is right. My boundary should be black and white. If you're on the one side of the boundary, you're great. If you're on the other side, it's terrible. They're convinced that their partner breaking their boundaries is wrong. And they're also convinced of the reasons their partner has for why they broke the boundaries. So for example, for me, whenever my partner lied to me, I was thinking via my hypothesis and said, no. This is a very clear-cut rule. You either lie to me or you don't. If you lie to me, then you cross my boundaries, that is bad. I don't care what your reasons are for lying to me, it's never appropriate. You're just trying to be abusive, that you're being toxic right now. If you don't lie to me, that's great, you're being healthy. But I really want you to start getting out of your hypothesis here and start thinking via your antithesis. What does that mean? This is basically being humble, looking within to say, how is my boundary wrong? What do I not know? What am I missing? And is there a good reason why my partner crossed my boundary? What am I not thinking about? What am I missing? What is she thinking that I'm not thinking about? Could my boundary actually not be as black and white as I initially thought it was? Could it be actually a big gray area where my partner could lie to me, but there's maybe other reasons that I'm not thinking about? That's antithetic thinking. It's basically trying to disprove your hypothesis and saying like, how am I wrong? What am I missing? What am I not considering? And if you actually look at how good thinkers, good problem solvers, good scientists think and how they find really good answers to their problems, they can reconcile problems, it's not by exploring their hypothesis, it's always by exploring their antithesis. They understand that they don't get the right answers in life ever by exploring just their hypothesis. They have to ask themselves, how is my hypothesis wrong? How is my theory wrong? They explore the antithesis, and once they explore the antithesis, they realize that neither the hypothesis or the antithesis is correct. It's always in the middle. It's always the synthesis. And this is exactly how I want you to think too, that most of you are thinking via your hypothesis. I want you to switch to your antithesis and actually find better answers, real answers to the problems that you're facing in your relationship. And once you adopt this mindset, you start to be calmer. And now you're able to actually be in more of a discovery mode to really understand and have actually a productive conversation about this topic rather than simply putting your foot down and letting the conversation end and say, this is not up for discussion, lying is bad, period. And so once you have this mindset, I want you to start having a conversation with your partner. And when you have this conversation, I want you to use the framework that I call the hypothesis and antithesis framework. So here's an example of something you can say, or something I said when I was dealing with my partner lying to me, for example. So I'm going to start with my hypothesis. So I'm going to say, honey, I want you to know that I'm a bit sad that you lied to me, but I guess if it was me, I wouldn't, resort to lying. I would just tell the truth because I know that telling the truth can allow me to understand you better and can allow us to get to a better resolution than if you keep the truth from me. That's the hypothesis part of the framework. That's when you're simply stating, well, this is what I would do. This is what I would think. This is how I would handle myself. But then it doesn't stop there. You have your antithesis. So I want you to ask your partner, for example, but perhaps I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's something I'm not thinking about. Maybe I'm not understanding your situation or your reasons for, telling me the lie that you just told me. Maybe I'm not understanding why you feel like you cannot tell me the truth. Tell me more about that. Can you say more about that? And just imagine you saying this to your partner, just how much more open to discussion they will be instead of just giving them a stern, no, you cannot cross that boundary. And I want you to keep thinking and asking questions via your antithetic framework to say, what am I missing? How am I wrong? I want to discover things from her side until you can say, okay, if I were you, honey, if I were you, I would have felt, I would have done, I would have thought exactly the same as you. And until you get there, you haven't dug deep enough. You haven't understood deep enough because again, your partner has a good reason why she does the things she does. In her mind, she might not even consciously be aware of it, but there's a good reason why. And once you get there, you will get to a point where you understand. Then once you get to a point where you understand, I want you to take a moment to confirm your antithesis. So perhaps you might say, okay, I see now. I think I understand it. I think what you're saying is that you've actually tried to tell me the truth many, many times, but whenever you did, I responded to you in really, really bad ways that makes you regret telling me the truth. And I actually responded badly to it. And I think part of the reason why you're telling me these lies again and you can't tell me the truth is that you're actually feeling guilty yourself about what you did, and you're afraid of hurting me, you're afraid of making me angry, and you're afraid of not understanding the perfect way, to tell me the truth in a way that doesn't make me react badly. Is that kind of what you're feeling? And here's what I found in my personal relationship, and you're gonna find this too in your own relationship too, in that when you actually open your mind and actually try this framework, actually exploring things from your antithesis, and be open to the idea that there might be other reasons than the reasons you're thinking about for why your partner crossed your boundaries. You're gonna find that it's actually very difficult, and rarely can you actually define your boundaries to something that's black and white like that. To say lying is wrong and not lying is great. Affairs are wrong or not having affairs are great. It's very, very hard to do it because there might be other intentions and other reasons that your partner may cross your boundaries that you're not even thinking about that makes you go, interesting. That's actually not that bad. I understand why you cross my boundaries. And when you have this level of compassion, you will start to have a calmer demeanor, and your calmness will make your partner calmer as well. And your mutual calmness will lead to a better win-win, a better understanding, a deeper understanding. And once you understand each other, that's when you can actually start coaching each other to your bright spots. But if I am used to prematurely just saying no, setting my boundaries, only seeing my boundaries in black and white, and using my hypothesis to guide my thinking like this, I would always get upset whenever my partner crossed my boundaries. I would naturally shut down conversations on my side and on my partner's side as well. And my partner would be more confused about what my actual boundary is, and I would be constantly be frustrated with my partner to say, I will always be telling myself basically, how could you? And because this communication is broken, I would have never found out that there was actually a wonderful reason that I'm not thinking about of why my partner lied to me. So most people are stuck in this cycle of this confirmation bias again. they define their boundaries as black and white, they shut down the conversation, and they never really understand that this conflict that they're having was actually very, very solvable and very reconcilable from the very beginning. And they never get to find out because they shut down communication from the very beginning. And once you do this, you can start to find better synthesis, better win-win solutions to whatever problems that you're facing. So you might say, for example, okay, next time I will try to do XYZ. Okay, next time I will also assume that when you react in ABC, I will assume that maybe I've done something wrong. Maybe I've made it really hard for you to tell the truth in some way. And then you might say also, like, I think it could help me if you could do ABC as well. What do you think? And so now you're in a position to actually have a better conversation about finding that win-win, finding that agreement to help your partner stop crossing your boundaries and coach your partner on the right behaviors and coach yourself on the right behaviors as well. Now, there's a lot more to this framework and a lot more nuances to this framework than what I can express in this one video, because honestly, in our course, we literally have 10 plus hours just covering this one framework alone. What I need you to understand is that you digging deeper, you being curious and exploring from your partner's point of view to really understand where she's coming from is going to be impossible if you do not have your antithetic mind. Because once you think from your hypothesis, you're going to stop asking questions. And once you stop asking questions, you're going to be upset and you're going to shut down the conversation again. And it'll be impossible too if you're not able to be calm when your partner crosses your boundaries, because as soon as you're upset, you can never continue this conversation again. You're too upset already. You need to shut down the conversation. So just to recap here, what you'll find when you start doing this framework and start to coach your partner in this different way is that boundaries are never black and white. In fact, it's impossible to form boundaries like this because there's usually a good reason that your partner does the things she does. And often these reasons are things that you cannot think of, you haven't thought of yet. So in your mind right now, you may be thinking, no, there's no possible good reasons why she would lie. I don't care the reasons why, but once you actually explore the reasons why she lies, or stonewalls, or whatever your boundaries are, you realize that no, it's rarely black and white. The motives, the intentions matter, and there's usually a good intention behind it there. And once you can find this deep understanding is when you can find win-wins. And when you can find win-wins, that's how you actually coach each other. So when you understand how to coach each other in this way, you don't need boundaries for relationships to thrive and for you to coach each other on what the right behavior is, what the wrong behavior is as well. That there are much better ways of doing so, and that setting boundaries may make you feel powerful in the short term, but in actuality, it doesn't add any more power to what you do. In fact, it puts both of you in this cycle of frustration and confusion, and you keeps yourself stuck in that cycle and you can never get out. And you will never know why you can't get out as well, because of that confirmation bias loop that we talked about. Now, there's so much more to understanding the frameworks and the mindsets to be able to actually coach your partner. And every single day, our students are mastering these concepts, these mindsets and these frameworks to allow them to get a lot of wins every day, a lot of successes every day in actually coaching their partner. And I don't care how stubborn you think your partner is. I don't care how toxic you think your partner is. We deal with very, very difficult circumstances in our program, and we can deal it just fine. Again, you might be thinking that your situation is more hopeless than you think it is, just because you're stuck in your confirmation bias loop that we talked about. But once you get out of that and explore your antithesis, explore new mindsets to approaching and seeing your problems in different ways, it's going to open your mind to a lot more solutions, a lot more paths that you can take to actually coach your partner in more effective ways. So if this is something you want to learn more about, then I want you to join me in my free masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. In this masterclass, I'll show you the exact steps that all my students have used to rebuild their relationship from the point where they're on the brink of a divorce to a point where they're thriving. And it always starts with one person. It doesn't need two to tango. And in this masterclass, you also have a chance to apply for the Relationships Revival program as well. Well, I hold your hand step by step in understanding the process in which you can take to develop these mindsets, to develop these frameworks as well. So if you're interested in joining the masterclass or in applying for the program, then click the link above my head or also down in the comments below or in the description box below this video as well. And if you're looking for a free guide that can help you guide these conversations better, the conversations that actually lead to better and deeper understanding and prevents conflicts in your partner shutting down, then I also want you to download the guide I have for you down below this video or above my head as well. And if you're looking for a community where you can post your questions and get help on them, then I want you to join me in my free Facebook group. And the link to join that group is down below this video as well. In the meantime, do leave a comment below. What did you find most insightful, most eye-opening for you in this video? I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'll try my best to answer any comments that I get on this video as best as I can. And if you found this video valuable, then like it and subscribe to this channel for more content like this one. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you with just 2 other videos here on more mindsets and skills that you can use to become a better leader of your relationship so that you can thrive for the long haul. In the meantime, I will see you in the next video.